Your research with Dr. Rothlin is very bold in that it develops a new paradigm for immunotherapy by not looking at for the next anti-PD-L1. Can you tell us about the origin of this new approach and how
Ah,
you
so
and Dr. Rothlin came to apply it to anti-tumor immune response?
right. So I met Carla when I was a postdoc at Salk, and that was again, like as I mentioned, a place like a Salk Institute. What it brings together are, fantastic people, and I was very lucky to be there at the right time. Well, I think even now people that are there, I'm sure they're meeting exciting people and doing great stuff. So we started to collaborate. I mean, Carla was in the lab of Greg Lemke, who discovered some of these receptor tyrosine kinases that regulates inflammation. Well, what was known was they had made a mouse model, that the mouse where they genetically ablated some of these receptor tyrosine kinases, and this mice, as they aged, developed inflammation. And Carla was trying to understand how these kinases regulate inflammation. And that's where, and I started collaborating with her with, being in Tony's lab and having some expertise in tyrosine kinases and signaling. So that's sort of the beginning of it. And then, you know, Carla's lab initially started looking at infection and autoimmunity, like, after she'd moved to Yale, and I kept collaborating with her. And then we started thinking like, okay, once we have understood the fundamental principles in the context of engagement of the immune system in classic sort of model systems like allergy or inflammatory bowel disease, we started to realize what I was telling you earlier, that if we understand how the brakes work, perhaps we can take off the brakes and also give the immune system a boost. And of course, with anti-PD-1, anti-CTLA-4, this is the latest sort of immunotherapy sort of class that has really worked wonders, right, for at least some patients. So patients, for example, with lung cancer that failed targeted therapy, there was no hope for them. A lot of them now get sustained benefit from this sort of immunotherapy. And what these anti-PD-1, anti-CTLA-4 are, they remove the brakes on the T cells. So as I mentioned, you have innate immunity first, and innate immunity engages adaptive immunity, and adaptive immunity is the specific arm. So these uh, reagents target the specific adaptive immune arm, targets the. So once the T cells, um, they are activated, there are again similar built-in negative regulators to suppress the T cell activation, because even adaptive immunity, if it is too much, goes on for too long, it can be harmful. So these drugs, what they do is relieve this restraint, and so the T cells can attack cancer more. But as I mentioned, it only works in some cancers, and even with only on some patients with that particular cancer, right? So it doesn't work in every lung cancer patient. It doesn't work now, for example, in prostate cancer. So why is that? And then we thought, because what we are working on is this innate immunity, which is an obligate prerequisite for adaptive immunity. And we have realized that there are breaks in this innate aspect as well. If we can take it off, perhaps now we can generate an adaptive immune response against cancers where there was none in the first place. Maybe the failure of anti-PD-1, anti-CTLA-4 is not because they're not working on the T cells, but because the T cells never got activated in the first place because the break was ahead at the innate level. So that's where this whole idea came from. We did a lot of experiments, especially in mouse in preclinical models, and we collaborate with a company called Mirati that have these tyrosine kinase inhibitors against these tyrosine kinases that we work on, MERTK, AXL. And we are about to begin an investigator-initiated clinical trial on patients at the Yale Cancer Center. So yeah, we are very excited. there's a lot of trepidation on our part as well to see if it works, really work. There's been so much that such exciting result on animal models. Often, we have to temper our enthusiasm because very often a lot of these studies don't translate to patients. So we are aware of that, and that's where the tension is right now. But hopefully this actually is one of those studies that translates into patients and can provide some benefit to a large
Yeah.
group of.